Let me share with you 3 of my best all-time driver videos. You know, driving doesn't have to be that complicated, especially when you get some of the secrets that I'm going to share with you here. Let's go and get started. Now, we all want to crush those drives dead straight, long down the middle of the fairway. But there's a couple things that make that nearly impossible. If I'm teeing the ball up, where about half the ball is above my crown, just like you see here, it may make it nearly impossible if I swing correctly to not hit thin on the bottom of the club face. You're going to lose a lot of distance when you do that. Same thing with my shoulder position. If I get it too far forward, now I'm going to have to lose lag, I'm going to cast, I'm going to flip, and worst of all, your drives are going to be inconsistent and they're not going to be very far down the fairway. I'm going to talk about the solutions to those and a couple other key tricks in this video. Let's go and get started. All right, so let's jump right in. I'm gonna hit a couple shots and talk about some of these key mistakes that we all can make. And Q's gonna read some of our flight scope numbers here on the radar, so it's gonna be tracking these shots. Number 1 is gonna be the tee height. Time and time again, I see players that are setting up the ball with about half the ball above the crown of the club. So meaning that half the ball is sticking up above this top edge of the driver. Now when that's happening, that's okay if I'm swinging level or down into the golf ball. So if I'm kind of hitting down into my drives, I'm gonna lose some distance, I'm gonna hit it inconsistent, but that tee height is about okay if I'm hitting down into it. So if I hit a drive, you know, I'm hitting down, big slice into the trees, lost tons of speed and tons of distance. I was actually able to hit on the top of the club face where I want to, but we're gonna talk about why this is all just a giant mess and go through that here in a second. So first, let's look at that first swing, doing it incorrectly. What was my club head speed? What was my distance? You know, what happened on that shot?
Club head speed was about 100, distance was 227. You hit down on it 5.9 degrees.
Okay, so there, driving it incorrectly, a couple things are going on. Number 1, I had that ball tee height too low. So only about half the ball was sticking up over my driver head. Now, if you want to hit it far, if you want to really get that high launch, you want to be swinging up into the ball. So there, I was kind of chopping down into the ball. That's one of the most common things I see. I'd say probably 80 or more % of players that I see are hitting down into their drives, which is not a good thing. I want to be hitting up into the drives. Problem lies in this tee height. If I tee it up where just half the ball is over the crown, if my club reaches its low point behind the golf ball and starts moving up into the golf ball, which is exactly what we want to be doing, look how now I'd be hitting off the bottom of the driver. When I hit thin off the bottom of the driver, I lose all kinds of distance, just like we saw there. I have to make contact on the top half of the club face. That's what's going to make it launch higher, spin less, and carry a mile. So instead of teeing that ball half a ball above my driver face, I want to get a good 3/4 of the ball above the driver face. So now we can see, if I make the right kind of swing, how I can hit up into this golf ball and I still have room to hit it on the top half of the club face. That makes things a lot easier. Let's go ahead and try one there, and we're going to see that I pick up a whole lot more distance when I also stay behind it and tee it up a little bit higher. We're going to get to the second part here in just 1 second. All right, so much better on that one, much longer, right down the middle of the fairway. Not quite perfect yet. Hit that one a little bit off the heel, but let's go ahead and go to the second key here after we talk about the numbers on that one. So what was the stats on that one, Q?
So club head speed was 118, total distance 308, and angle of attack, you were hitting up on it about 1.3.
So hit a little bit up on that one. Another big key there, I mentioned the second thing, is I don't want to be sliding in front of this. That first shot where I just kind of sliced it off in the woods, it wasn't any good. I was letting my shoulder get up in front of my ankle. Now, if you want to hit your drives far, what you want to do is something called the compression line. And what I mean by this, that's a term we use in the Top Speed Golf system. What I mean by this is, at impact, if I was to draw a line from my left ankle, the center of my left ankle, to the center of my left shoulder socket, that would be tilted away from the target. This would be toward the target. I'd be chopping down into the ball, weak, short drives. This would be away from the target, hitting up into the ball, long, powerful drives. Now, it's not just that I'm away that's helping me hit up on it that's good. It's also the powerful position I'm in with my body. When I get tilted away from the target, now look how it makes a lot of sense where I can have this lag and then release that out in front of the golf ball. If I was up here and I had a lot of lag, I would swing right over top of the golf ball. Wouldn't make sense. So from here, I can get lag, release that in the golf ball. I'm gonna hit it a lot farther. So here, notice on this swing, my compression line. I'm gonna feel like as I tee up to, or as I set up to this golf ball, my head is behind the golf ball, my shoulder is behind my lead ankle, and I feel like I'm really gonna get behind it and let everything release out through the golf ball. So I'm getting my speed in front of the golf ball rather than chopping down into the golf ball. Let's go ahead and try that out. There we go, that one was perfect there. Couldn't have hit that one much better. Gonna have a positive angle attack, I bet. And I stayed behind that one really nicely. What were the numbers on that, Q?
So 118 club head speed, total distance was 323, and your angle of attack was up 3 degrees.
So up 3 degrees, that's about perfect there. So one other last thing here. Me and Q were talking a minute ago, and he was mentioning something that I thought was really interesting to me. Why don't you walk him through what you believe makes the most sense to get the third piece here, which would be ball position. So where could I go wrong? Again, we don't want to hit down into this. We saw how bad that can be. What do I need to do with my ball position to get it right?
Right, so we've often heard that we want to play the ball off the inside of our lead foot. And that can be a fine position for a lot of people, but what happens is we all have different stance widths. So if you play that ball off the inside of your lead foot, do a narrow stance for me. And basically what we want to happen is we want this club to bottom out and then work up into the golf ball. And typically where that club is bottoming out is about right in your armpit there. So if you look here, if he has a narrow stance and he plays that ball off the inside of his lead foot, on that armpit, that's basically going to be, it might even be a little bit ahead of the golf ball depending on the camera angle.
I'm going to be tufted up on that from this narrow stance here.
Right.
I'd be kind of falling off.
Right, so we definitely don't want to be doing that. And if you had a very wide stance, now if you step that back foot back, there you go. You play off the inside of your foot. Now that armpit might be too far behind the ball and the club might be coming in, bottoming out, and then working up into the ball and hitting nice or bad thin shots that you don't want to be hitting. Those are going to be the really thin ones that really balloon up into the air.
It's kind of the other extreme. I get way back here and now I'm going to almost hit the ground or thin it, you know?
Right. So what we really want to do is play that ball in relationship to our upper body. And I've found that off the outside of your lead shoulder is actually a great place to play the ball, because that allows the club to bottom out about where the armpit is and then work up a few inches into the golf ball so you can get that nice upward angle of attack. So you get that high launch, low spin. Those are the drives that we all want. So Clay, how about you hit one here where you display that really good ball position and see what kind of numbers we get.
That makes a ton of sense to me too, because I could, as long as I keep this in relationship to my shoulder, I could have my feet narrow and I'd still be in a good spot to where I could hit up on it. I could have my feet really wide and maybe the ball would look like it's a little farther back in my stance, but it's still in that good position. So I like that a lot. So I'm gonna play it off the outside of my shoulder. I've got the correct tee height and I have what's called the compression line. I'm staying behind the golf ball. When I put all three of those together, I'm just in a position here to where I can really get a lot of lag. I can swing through this golf ball and get tons of speed, and I'm gonna be pretty consistent while I'm doing that. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. There we go, that might have been the best one of the several that I've hit. What were the stats on that one there, Q?
Still in the air. All right, so it just came down, 117 club head speed, total distance 331. You're hitting up on it almost 6 degrees.
Yeah, so you can see there, as I started to go up and up more, the ball flew higher, got lower spin, and it went a heck of a lot longer. So follow those three keys, you're gonna hit the best drives of your life. Now there's a few common setup issues that I see time and time again, and I think it stems from the axe motion. It feels really powerful when we have a golf club. Let's imagine this is a golf club for a second. If I feel like I'm gonna hit this golf ball and I bring this thing over my head and I chop down into the golf ball, it feels like I have tons and tons of power, tons and tons of speed. I feel like I could have chopped that golf ball in two. And I think every golfer, from when they very begin to start playing, they want to feel that really powerful motion. Well, in golf, unfortunately, that doesn't really work. Instead of having that over the head chop type motion, and I'll fix that, don't worry about the tee, you need to be coming from the inside, get the club in the slot, and then feel like you can deliver that club with a good path to have tons of power and tons of speed. If we continue to set up in ways that get us into that chopping type position, we're gonna lose speed, we're gonna lose distance. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about three of the most common setup myths, setup problems that get you into that chopping position rather than being into a powerful position where we can get into the slot. Once you get set up the right way, you're gonna hit the ball a lot farther. All right, so let's jump right in here. Let's talk about the first issue that can really wreak havoc on your speed, And if I'm kind of imagining that powerful feeling of me coming down and chopping into this golf ball, we all know we don't want to do that, but it feels so good doing that. If I visualize that, one thing that I'll do with my setup is I'll set up in a position where I would have a lot of power coming down in this angle. And if you notice my shoulders, so if I was to put a golf club across my shoulders here, this would be level with the ground. This would be a little tilt away from the target, my head getting farther behind the ball, my spine being kind of angled away from the golf ball. That's really good. But if I'm set up in a way that I feel like I'm going to come down into this golf ball really powerfully, a lot of times what will happen is my shoulders will get level. I'll get too far kind of to the left if you're looking at my shoulders. And now I'm in this position that feels like I can slam down in this golf ball with a lot of speed, with a lot of energy, but it really just doesn't work in golf. So that's the first key. What I want you to do, go ahead right now, even if you're not on the driving range, grab a club, grab a broom, whatever you have to do, follow right along with me on this. And this is really going to help a ton. Put a club across your shoulders. So hold it right on the tips of your shoulders here. Go ahead and bend forward into your posture. And then I'm going to feel like my belt buckle goes a little forward toward the target. My upper body gets a little bit more behind it here. My head's behind the golf ball. My chest is behind the golf ball. And you're going to notice how I create a little bit of an angle with my club there. So just a slight angle is plenty. I don't have to go like this and go really a ton. But what I want you to do is set up very level. And then I want you to tilt away, let's call that about 10 degrees or so with my shoulder angle. Doesn't have to be more than that. A little more, a little less, not a big deal. So go ahead and do that about 15 to 20 times just to get comfortable getting behind that golf ball, just like this. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with my golf club, repeating that same action. So here I'm setting up, I'm getting a little tilt away, and now all of a sudden I've tilted everything much more to the inside. I've created this big area right here where I can swing my hands and arms from the inside. I can get that club into the slot, and that's going to make it a lot easier to create the real speed that we need and not that over-the-top type speed. Let's go ahead and try that out. I'm going to hinge forward, a little tilt to my shoulders, my head is behind the golf ball. Let's give it a whirl. Okay, nice draw right down the left side of the fairway. All right, now the second piece of this is going to be a little trick with your elbow. If you get your elbow in the right position, it makes it so much easier to come down from the slot, come down from the inside like we're talking about, to get rid of that axe chop type move that kills our distance, kills our power. So what we're going to do here, and the way I want you to do this, go ahead and set up to the golf ball. If you're in your living room, just set up to an imaginary golf ball, either way is fine. And I'm going to get in my shoulder tilt first. Now I'm going to get about 10 or 15 degrees or so of shoulder tilt like I talked about. And then from there, that's when I'm going to add my hand. So if I add my right hand from this position, it's going to be much more under or from the inside when I'm adding the right hand. That helps me to get my shoulders a little more square to the target. It helps promote that tilt. It helps promote me coming more from the inside when I'm doing that. So if you look at my palm of my right hand, it's going to feel much more underneath the club versus if I'm too level with my shoulders and I add the right hand on there, now all of a sudden my palm is on top of the club. That's what's called a weak grip, and it's very easy for that to turn into a slice or kind of chop down over the top move. So get in the tilt, 15 or 20 reps, add the right hand in there, and then we're going to close our grip. So a little bit goes a long way. You don't have to have the hand way under here like this, like I'll see some people really trying to exaggerate it. Just get it a little bit to the right. If you're looking for a few key checkpoints there, I'm looking for the index finger and my thumb. If I cinch those together, that's going to be pointed roughly toward my right shoulder. So that's when you know you're getting about the right amount of it. It should look something like that. The second piece of this right hand trick is what I talked about with the elbow. A big mistake when you get your shoulders too level. I'm going to put this hand on top, palm down, and now my elbow pit is pointed toward the target. That sets me up way too level with my shoulders, way too far to the left, and I really have nothing I can do from this position rather than to chop down over the top and really make a weak swing here. So as I'm adding my right hand, I want to feel like my elbow, if I look at the pointy part of my elbow, the bottom of my elbow, I'm going to feel like it's in toward my hip a little bit when I'm doing that. Now you can also see from this position, if I'm looking from down the line, how that's a little bit under my right forearm. So I'm exaggerating here so you can see that on camera, but this is under or lower. This would be over top. I don't want this or I'm going to really chop down into it. So set up, get your tilt, add your right hand, palm up, and then feel like that elbow is kind of towards your hip there. Now I'm in a powerful position where I can really get it inside from the slot and get that great, really athletic setup. Now the third piece of this really athletic, powerful setup is going to be my stance. And I see players all the time go wrong with this, and it's actually become some pretty common instruction the last few years, is we want our stance fairly narrow or just shoulder width apart. Now, we could argue that, but there's a great test for this. Here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and set up to the golf ball, and I want you to start with your stance really, really narrow. Just have your feet almost together, touching. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and make a swing now, and I'm gonna try to kill this golf ball. I'm gonna try to hit it absolutely as hard as I can and see how far I can hit my driver. I'm even gonna get my tilts and everything like I was trying to do with my shoulders and my arm, and let's see what happens. I smoked that one. That's about as good as I can hit one swinging from that way. Down the right center of the fairway. According to my flight scope, I swung 107 miles an hour, and about as daggone good as I could hit one. I hit one 280, so not too bad. If everything else in your body is working well, if your hands, arms, shoulders, all that is delivering the club properly, you can do a lot of things with the lower body wrong and still get some good distance like I was talking about there, what I showed there. Now what I want you to do is gradually widen that stance up. Let me grab a couple golf balls here. And I'm gradually gonna go wider and wider until I find my most athletic stance width. So you don't have to listen to me. I'm not in charge of exactly what you have to do. Find out for yourself. Start very narrow and then go wider and wider in your stance until you feel like you're the most athletic. For you, let's say you have this really wide, powerful stance like this, that's okay. As long as you move your feet a little bit, that's gonna be completely fine. You can set up that way and still be really good. What I've found for most players is they like to set up, and I've tested this with quite a few players, a little wider than shoulder width apart. So if I stand straight up and down, you can see about how wide my feet are here. If I drew a line vertically from the ankle, it would be outside my shoulders, both my right foot and my left foot. This is about the most athletic I can get for my own personal stance. This is about the width that I see for most players. So a couple inches wider than your shoulders is perfect. Look at Rory McIlroy, the longest pound for pound hitter on the PGA Tour. You're gonna see a nice wide stance like this. This is athletic. My legs are bent. I feel like I could really drive off the ground when I'm doing this. Now the one thing you don't wanna do from here is I don't wanna keep my feet still. I don't wanna keep my feet kind of suctioned to the ground there and be swinging all arms. I have to go ahead and let my feet move. On my backswing, my left heel is gonna come up slightly. On my follow through, I'm really gonna let that right foot rotate all the way around. That's a very, very good key. But as long as I'm doing that, I can go as wide as I want and still have the movement and the freedom in my golf swing. So here, I'm gonna go ahead and set up what I feel like is my most powerful stance, and let's tie all three things that I talked about together. Number one, I have a little bit of a shoulder tilt. Number two, my right hand is coming into the club a little bit more from the bottom with my right elbow pit up. Number three, I have that nice athletic wide stance, a little bit of knee bend. I feel like I'm playing shortstop here. And now I'm in a position where I can really hit this golf ball pretty daggone hard. Let's give it a whirl. All right, hit that one nicely, right down the center. All right, let's cut right to the chase. How do we hit the driver with speed and power and still be accurate? Piece number one, we need a little bit of a wider stance. A lot of times you'll hear players talking about, or coaches or whoever, talking about narrowing up that stance. That way it's easier to rotate coming back and through. Now that's only the case if your feet stay flat on the ground. So if my feet are close together, they stay flat on the ground. Now it is easier to rotate back and through if I'm here versus if they stay flat on the ground here. The problem is in the golf swing, our feet don't stay flat on the ground. As we come through, that right heel comes up, that allows our heels to rotate. And you can see I could even take this big wide stance, this big base, and I could really rotate my hips a ton by doing that in the golf swing. So let's put this to the test. If a wider swing is better for power, we should be able to make a swing and see the power go up. First, let's take a narrow swing here. So I'm gonna exaggerate, really exaggerate for this test. And I'm just gonna have a really narrow stance. I'm gonna try to hit this ball as hard as I can. And it's very tough. I feel like I'm really fighting my feet to grab some friction and some power from the ground. I still generated a pretty decent amount of swing speed. Tough to control, 107 miles an hour, 235 carry, 256 total. Now let's go ahead and hit one with a wider stance. So obviously we can see that that's not gonna be very tough to beat those numbers given what I usually swing, but let's really exaggerate it here. Again, go to the extreme so we can feel this. Now I can really feel like I grab into the ground and rotate my hips. Again, that right foot has to come off the ground to allow that to happen, but that happens in every great golf swing. So here, let's try to really swing one hard. There we go, much better. A little thin on the face. We can see there that's much more swing speed, much more distance. Even though that wouldn't normally be the way I would swing the golf club. Jumped up to 117 and 275 total. Not bad for a miss hit there. So that's piece number one. Grab a golf club and do this for me. Start out with a very narrow stance and swing as hard as you can. You're going to find it incredibly difficult. Go wider and wider and wider until you feel really powerful. And then keep on going until you feel like you're so wide, now it is a little bit tougher to move through the shot. And then narrow that down again. So test this out to find your most powerful stance width. It's easy for somebody to say, okay, we need to be shoulder width, but if I make it a little wider than shoulder width and I pick up 10 or 15 yards, you better believe I'm gonna swing like this. I'm gonna find the way that works best for me, given my own body type and my own stature. So play around with stance widths and you'll start to find a sweet spot there where you feel like you get tons of power and you can really crank that driver. Now once we have this powerful base, we're ready to move into the actual drill here, which is going to help us to leverage the ground and really get the power from the body. Okay, so this drill is really going to help me to rotate the big segments of my body, my legs, my hips, my shoulders, and generate a lot of power from that. All I'm going to do is take the grip with my left hand only. I'm going to bring it over here, add my right hand on it, and I'm going to split this grip apart by about shoulder width or so. A little bit wider and narrow doesn't really make much difference. The right hand's going to go on there underhand. Now from here, I'm going to work on loading up my body. So I'm going to really feel like I'm loading up as far back as I can go. Again, everybody's going to be a little bit different based on your flexibility. Feel like you loosen up that left heel a little bit to get those hips to rotate. Really load up into the backswing. So that's going to help to stretch you out and feel like you're really getting wound up, just like you see with the top pros. If you're a little bit tighter and you can only go to here, that's completely fine. Just go as far as you can to get the most power that you have given your own individual range of motion. Now from there, as I work on this downswing, I want to feel like I'm coming down on plane. So I don't want to come down over the top like this and slice across the ball. I don't want to come back way inside like this. Let's get really wound up and then come down on plane, and through impact, what I want you to do is feel like a hockey shot. I don't play hockey, but so I apologize for people that do play hockey if I'm describing this wrong. But feel like this is a hockey shot. And I want you to take that right foot and drive through there and feel like you're gonna press through with the right side of your body. So I'm taking the right side of my body and I'm really getting some power into that swing this way. So as I come on through, I'm really feel like I'm driving the right side of my body, my hip, my shoulder, my arms are coming through with some speed, and that's gonna allow me to get the speed into this club. That's gonna make sure that I don't decelerate and I really keep everything working through the golf shot. Now the wrong way to do this, and where I see players lose a lot of speed, is they'll keep their body still. They'll start down and go all hands and arms and flip because my body's not moving. If I can rotate my body on through, now I can keep that momentum moving through the golf ball. So again, easy to say, let's just put it to the test, find out for ourselves. On this one, I'm gonna feel like I keep my lower body very still, not very engaged, the opposite of what we just did in that drill. So I'm not gonna not really load up in the backswing, and I'm not gonna turn on through in the downswing. So watch my legs on this swing. Again, I got a lot of whip from my hands and arms. Not gonna be very accurate with that one. That was not gonna be the best shot. Went over into the left rough barely. And my swing speed was 103.9, 258 total distance. So I hit it pretty well considering my low swing speed, but I can do a lot better than that, and you can too. I'm gonna go ahead and do this drill again 4 or 5 times, get the feeling there, really driving through the shot. Let's get that same sensation in the drive. Let's see if we can pick up a little bit of distance. There we go, much better. Right down the left side of the fairway. Let's see what my club head speed and my distance went up to. So 103 on the one before. I'm all the way up to 115.4, 291.9 total distance. So really focus on getting wound up with that split grip. That really helps you do that. And then from there, use those legs, use that lower body to rotate on through to build your swing speed. So what is this drill that we just did? What is it really doing for you? What it's doing is allowing you to rotate your body in the backswing. And the only way I can get really good club head speed is to load up the hips The shoulders, the arms, having that big wide stable stance is going to help with that. And then as I come on through, rotating all the way through to that full finish, getting those legs active to make that to happen. Well, that's what we call the power turn in the Top Speed Golf system. You can take this drill today. This is really going to help you to get started on this power turn. But if you want to ingrain that, you want your body to work to where you don't even have to think about it. You just grab a club, you swing, and it happens. You're going to want to watch this next video where I introduce to you what the power turn is all about. Go ahead and click the link in the iCard that pops up on your screen, the link down below in the description. You'll get instant access to that video. You'll start hitting it farther. You'll start feeling more powerful when you're over top of your drives, and you're going to have a blast. Let's go and get started. The correct technique, we can all hit it with really good distance without a lot of muscular effort. And it all starts out, the very first thing you have to do is get a good powerful turn to load up the body. And it's not only in golf, but in all sports we have to rotate the body. At least 90 degrees with the shoulders as you swing to the top. Preferably, we can go even a little bit past 90 to really get loaded up. That's going to allow us to have a lot of power. So we don't just have to look at golf for this. Let's actually look at other sports. They're rotating their body, then they're coming forward. So we have to get that load. We have to get this big shoulder turn to be able to create power in the golf swing. So in this series of videos, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. That's one of the first keys to getting power, and we're all going to get at least a 90-degree turn, if not more than that. I think you'll be surprised at what you can do. So let's go ahead and get started with the next series of videos, and I'm going to show you how to get this big, powerful turn. All right, guys, so before we go, let's take a look at this in action with some of the top pros. Now here we're looking at Adam Scott, and you're going to see as he rotates to the top, good full shoulder turn. This is pretty typical of what I see with the top pros, a little past 90. Those guys are working on their flexibility, so sometimes they can get to 100 or even 110 degrees.